there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov that when he was growing up, he became keenly aware and acutely aware of the fact that Shabbat is very important. And there's many, many, many laws of Shabbat, and it's very hard to keep Shabbat. Even if you want to keep Shabbat, and even if you learn Torah, and even if you keep the mitzvot, it's still very, very hard to keep Shabbat. And the Baal Shem Tov, which he was known for, he used to traverse spiritual worlds. He used to have something called the Veikut, where he would have deep, intimate attachment to Hashem within meditation. And because he was on a very high level, both spiritually and physically and emotionally and psychologically, he was able to actually traverse through spiritual worlds and to go up, so to speak, and see who's doing things right. No. Another different one, please. Thank you. So he went up there and he asked the malachim, the angels who were there, I want to see the person who keeps Shabbat the best. Who is the person who keeps Shabbat the best? Because I want to see what he does. Because the Baal Shem Tov, as a kid, was always worried, and you can never have like joy on Shabbat because he was constantly worried about doing it right. So they took him up to the highest place in Gan Eden, and there was 2 seats there. So the Baal Shem Tov, he said, who are these 2 seats for? Because there was nobody sitting on them. So he said, one of them is for you if you play your cards right. Meaning, ultimately, when you achieve your purpose in your life, which is obviously to be one of the most important people that ever lived in history, and one of the most important spiritual masters in the history of Judaism. So he was saying that when you get there, one of these seats will be for you. So he said, so who's the other seat for? So he told him that he's alive right now, and you can go see him if you want. So the Baal Shem Tov, he was known for doing this, he was not always busy learning Torah, even though he did learn a lot of Torah, usually in hiding. But he used to be amongst the people. He used to go to the people wherever they were and to try and lift them up and empower them and encourage them. And he got on his horse and buggy, and he started going, and he didn't exactly know how to get there. He just knew what it looked like. So he just started going and going and going. And because he had complete emunah in Hashem, and he knew that Hashem knew what he was doing, so he felt that whenever the horse and buggy stopped, that was the house. So he eventually got to this home, and the horse just stopped completely, dead stop. And he felt that this was it. So he went out, and he goes over to this house, but the neighborhood was very peculiar. And he knocks on the door, and a guy comes out, and he pretended, the Baal Shem Tov, that he was didn't know where he was, and he needed a place to stay. So the guy said, yeah. He said, of course you can stay here. You need a place to stay? Of course, come in. So he comes in, he sees that there's no mezuzah on the door, and he walks in, and he's looking at this guy, and he's curious as to, like, wow, this guy must be like really a big hidden tzaddik, he doesn't even have a mezuzah on his door. And the day is going by from Thursday to Friday, and he sees he's not learning Torah, and he sees he's not praying to Hashem like the 3 prayers that you're supposed to do, and he's not doing any of those things. And by the time Shabbat started, he didn't do Lecha Dodi, he didn't do Kabbalat Shabbat, he didn't do anything, he didn't prepare food for Shabbat, nothing. And the Baal Shem Tov was like, oh my gosh, I don't even think this guy's Jewish, and now I'm stuck here for Shabbat. And he's sitting there, and he's so upset that he went to this place and he did this and whatever. And then it's the next day, it's Saturday, and all of a sudden, all these people start coming over the house, all non-Jews. And they're partying, and they're drinking, and they're having a great time together, playing cards, whatever they're doing. And the Baal Shem Tov is like, I can't believe I spent Shabbat here. I can't believe this is what I ended up doing with my weekend. And at the end, as he was leaving, he said to the guy, can you just tell me one thing? He said, why did you have all those people over? So he said, I'll tell you the truth. I grew up an orphan. My parents passed away when I was very young, but I'm Jewish. And they kept Shabbat. They kept this thing that was called Shabbat. And I don't remember anything about it. The only thing I remember is that they used to have people over and they used to make them very happy. And every single weekend that I was there for a few years, before my parents passed away, that was what they did. And I remember that very fondly. And I was adopted by a non-Jewish family. And I don't really know anything about Judaism. I don't know anything about the Torah. But ever since then, I made up my mind that every weekend, if I had the opportunity, I would have everybody in my neighborhood come over and to make them happy. And the Baal Shem Tov realized, wow, this is what Hashem wanted me to say. That Hashem likes more than anything when his children are happy. And the Baal Shem Tov, actually, his first inclination was like, wow, this guy is such a chashuv guy. He just doesn't know anything. Like, maybe I should just tell him that there's laws of Shabbat. He probably doesn't even know that. And he would probably keep it if I told him. And the Baal Shem Tov actually opened his mouth to start to tell him what Shabbat really is and how to do it. And as soon as he started to open his mouth, he couldn't speak. And there is a tradition amongst real tzaddikim that they don't do anything Hashem doesn't want them to do. And that even means that when they go to say something which they think is for Hashem, Hashem will actually have them not be audible. They can't talk. They can't get the words out. Their tongue is stuck because Hashem doesn't want them to. And then he started to think to himself, why doesn't Hashem want me to tell him how to keep the mitzvot of Shabbat? And then he realized on his walk home that if he would tell him, he would try and do it. But he has no means to because he doesn't have money. And he lives in a non-Jewish neighborhood. So he wouldn't be able to get kosher food. And not only would he not be keeping Shabbat, he would just be unhappy. And one of the spots was for him, for the people who keep Shabbat the best. Now, once this happened, the Baal Shem Tov, moving forward in his life, he realized that as much as Hashem likes us to do the mitzvot and to do the things that he believes are good for us, it's just as important that we're happy. And this is part of the main reason why Rabbi Nachman stresses it so much, that you have to be happy all the time, because Hashem wants you to be. That's why he said it's a mitzvah gedola. It's not because Rabbi Nachman just wanted to feel good. It's mitzvah gedola doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. It means this is a commandment that Hashem wants us to be that happy all the time, to be happy in doing the mitzvot. So this was part of the reason why Hasidus ended up becoming very connected into the concept of joy and sort of reinvigorating it within Judaism, even though it's very clear in the stories of tzaddikim from the past and the Gemara that there was that level of joy. So now this is not to say, chas v'shalom, not to do the mitzvot. You should do the mitzvot. Hashem wants you to do the mitzvot. Rabbi Nachman says you should learn Shulchan Aruch every day. But it's just to point out that it's very, very important not to lose you, not to lose your sense of joy, because Hashem doesn't want that. And even though you might see many Jewish people, religious people, who are keeping all the mitzvot and they're not happy, and you'd say, well, that's everybody, so it must be that this is what Hashem wants. And it's not. It's not what Hashem wants. And that's the whole reason why the Baal Shem Tov made it his mission to create a whole new renaissance within the Jewish world, not because he wanted to do something new, but because he wanted to do something old. He wanted to do what Hashem told us to do. And that requires us to serve Hashem besimcha. And that means to be happy. Just something to say. So for all the Baalei Tshuva who are listening, and all the people who are religious, people who have been keeping the mitzvot their whole life, Hashem wants you to be happy. So if you are thinking to yourself, should I do this? Should I not do this? And it's beyond what the mitzvot say to yourself, this Hashem wants me to be happy. Is this making me happy? The answer is yes. So it's a mitzvah to do it. It's good. And if you see that you're taking something on yourself and it's making you unhappy, so don't do that. Because Hashem doesn't want you to be unhappy. He wants you to be happy. Part of what I pray for all the time is, Hashem, please help me to continue to grow spiritually, but to make sure at every step that I'm happy. Because Rabbi Nachman says that if you're happy, you can do anything. And if you're unhappy, you'll never be able to do anything. So it's the key to growing spiritually, is to be happy. Besides the fact that Hashem wants you to be. And besides the fact that when you are happy, everybody wants to be connected to you, and you're able to feel unity and peace in your life and love in your life. And you're able to think clearly, like Rabbi Nachman says, when you're happy. Rabbi Nachman, he says explicitly, the reason why the majority of the Jewish people have no connection to Hashem whatsoever has nothing to do with the fact that they don't want to keep the mitzvot. That's not why they're not doing it. And even though you're going to hear that from the majority of rabbis, that's why they're not keeping the mitzvot, is because they don't want to have the obligation on themselves. It's not true. I grew up in that world. They don't even know what the mitzvot are. So Rabbi Nachman says the reason they don't want to keep the mitzvot and they don't want to be close to Hashem is because they're not happy. And because they're not happy, they can't think clearly. And because they can't think clearly, they don't realize that they want to be close to Hashem. And that's an incredible chidush. And that's so obvious if you think about it. How many people just are not happy? And you know for yourself, and I know for myself, that when I'm not happy, I can't think well. I can't think clearly. I can't figure out what I want to do with my life and who I want to be and what do I want to accomplish. If I'm sad, I could barely get through my day. So Rabbi Nachman says, you know what the key is to bringing everybody back? Make them happy. And if you make them happy, then they're going to want to be close to Hashem. And this is the reason why the majority of secular Jews are coming back through Hasidus, through Chabad, and through Breslov, and through all these different means. Because when they go into that home is happy. And they're not used to that. And then they're thinking to themselves, this is weird. Why are they so happy? And why do they care about me so much? And why does it seem like their family gets along so well? I've never seen anything like that. And all of a sudden, they might say to themselves, this is not real, this is a cult, but this is nice to be around. Like my experience. And you stick around, and they stick around, they come back for Shabbat, and they just like the company or whatever. And then after a while, they look back at their life, they see how miserable it is, and they see how empty it is, and they see these people, and they start to think to themselves, you know what, maybe they know something I don't know. And then they start to look a little bit. The key is to be happy. To see how far this goes, the word Mashiach, if you flip the letters around, it's Yismach, that he makes happy. And now it makes a lot of sense. Meaning the fundamental means through which Mashiach brings the whole world to believe in Hashem and to want to be close to him is by making everybody happy. So it's very important that you're happy. And this is not new age psychology. This is not pop culture. This is Judaism. This is the truth. This is the emet. This is beyond all the Kabbalistic ramifications and how Simcha actually comes from the Sfirot that's higher than the 7 Sfirot that are of this natural world, that it's supernatural. And if you get even higher than that, you're in the level of Keter, where there's something called Tanug, which is ecstasy or delight. And that's an even more intense joy. That's coming from the highest place in godliness. So that's even besides all of those things. So therefore, if you want to be close to Hashem and you want to grow spiritually and you want others to be close to Hashem, and you want to show them how good it is to have Hashem in your life, then you have to really learn to be happy. And Rabbi Nachman's Torah teaches you how to be happy. But anything beyond the actual mitzvot, make sure you're happy, because that's going to allow you to really thrive and to grow every single day. So that's just a little aside. And even though that took up half the class, I think it was worth it. So I'll say quickly what we did yesterday. And then we'll move forward in this amazing, exciting new Torah in Likutey Moharan. So the Torah starts and says that what is the main weapon of Mashiach? Now, I just said that his whole effort is to make people happy and through that to bring them close to Hashem. But how does he even have the opportunity to do so? How does he become that happy, that he can give that happiness over to others? How does he have that self-confidence to be able to reach out to the world and to lift them up? So Rabbi Nachman says, if not for this one thing, he wouldn't be able to do any of those things. There's one reason he's going to have the power to overcome all obstacles and difficulties in his life and to bring the whole world to peace and to truth and to closeness with Hashem, and that is his mouth, and specifically in the area of prayer, meaning he's talking to Hashem all day. And when he's talking to Hashem, he's pouring his heart out to him. And he continues to do this in his life and to perfect his prayer. And once his prayer reaches shleimut, reaches completion, then he can conquer the whole world. And it's all through prayer. It's all through talking to Hashem. And we said that for us, for each and every one of us, we all have a spark of Mashiach within us. And that is not just a nicety. That means that whatever applies to Mashiach applies to us on a smaller individual level. That we can also achieve conquering of all of the difficulties and challenges in our life. And it happens through the same exact means as through Mashiach, which is through tefillah. His main weapon is tefillah, which we connected to the concept of the nose. That just like when you breathe, you need oxygen for your physical body to sustain, so too the concept of the nose spiritually is tefillah. That you need to breathe just like you need to pray in order to experience the light of your soul. And that it's alive, it's actually alive. You're not just doing by rote whatever you were told, but that you're literally connected to something that is beautiful, to something that is true, to something that is genuine, to what Hashem wants. And it's all through prayer. It's all through talking to Hashem. Now, we're going to move forward. Prayer is his essential weapon. Mashiach. So now he's going to bring a proof for this. When Yaakov Avinu was giving a bracha to Yosef HaTzadik, his son, the main spiritual heir to him, and the one through which he gave his children, Yosef's children, Ephraim and Manasseh, a double portion. So therefore, what was supposed to go to Reuven and to Yosef, to Levi and to Yosef, actually was taken away from Levi because he was given the role of being the servants of the Jewish people, and they would not have a portion in the land of Israel. And it would be given to Ephraim and Manasseh, to two of Yosef's sons, so he got a double portion. So he was explaining to Yosef how he got it. Now, seemingly, it simply sounds like he's just saying, this is what happened, and now I have this double portion of physical land to give you, and here it is. But the Torah doesn't waste words. And there's a reason why everything that's said, it's said. So why is Yaakov telling Yosef, I got it this way, meaning with my sword and my bow? So part of the answer to this is he says he got it from the Amorites. So that's one of the 7 nations of the land of Canaan that was there, which Yoshua and the Jewish people had to overcome in order to inherit the land. And the main Amorite, according to Chazal, is Esav. That Esav is called Emori, meaning that Yaakov got this double portion, meaning the birthright, from his brother Esav, who he calls the Amorite. How did he get it from Esav? And by the way, what we're going to learn in this Torah is that Esav represents our connection to the physical world that is completely divorced from spirituality. Meaning, simply put, that I'm living just for physical existence, for pleasure, for honor, for prestige, for money. All that is called Esav in the Torah. Whenever you have someone or something which is connected only to the physical world and not looking at all to connect to the root of whatever he's doing, which is godliness, which is spirituality, that's called Esav. So Yaakov is saying, how did I get it from my brother, this double portion? Which we're going to learn in a moment, what was that double portion? He got it through a sword and his bow. So what's that sword and his bow? Yaakov was Jewish, and Yaakov learned in yeshiva all day. And then he got up and he got very angry at his kids for using violence. So how all of a sudden he's saying, I got this through my sword and my bow? It doesn't make sense. So what does Rashi say there? Rashi is the most famous commentator in the Torah, and he's only looking to elucidate the pshat, meaning Rashi's only intent is to explain to you the simple meaning of what the Torah says. Not to try and explain to you deeper understanding what it's saying. He's just telling you this is what the Torah means when it says this. What does it mean that Yaakov overcame and took this double portion with his sword and his bow? Ferush Rashi, tefillah uvakasha. He did it through prayer and request. So that's not Rashi explaining on a deeper level what the sword and the bow mean. It means that was his sword and bow. That's what he was talking about. That was Yaakov's weapon, in which he took from Esav the concept of the double portion, the birthright, which we're going to speak about in a moment. What is that birthright? Okay? So we see here that Yaakov Avinu, why is Rabbi Nachman bringing Yaakov Avinu as his example? Because Yaakov Avinu is the prototypical Jew. We are called Bnei Yaakov, Bnei Yisrael, because Yaakov represents the archetypal Jew in the Torah. Whatever happens to Yaakov happens to every single Jew in their lifetime. We all have Esav. Esav is the part of us that wants only to connect to physicality. And we are desperately trying to extricate ourselves from that part of us because we want to experience the inner life force of everything, because that is where all blessing and all peace and all joy comes from. And to do that, we need to take the birthright back from Esav, meaning from our ego, from our external self. How do we do that? Only through one means. Tefillah uvakasha, through prayer and request. Through your mouth. Like Rabbi Nachman is teaching, how does Mashiach conquer the world? He does it through tefillah, the same exact way. And if you're going to say, maybe Rashi's just bringing a midrash. Maybe he doesn't really mean simply, even though we know that is all he means. So now he brings a pasuk from Tehillim, where David HaMelech himself says, who is Mashiach, Ki lo v'kashti eftach. I don't trust in my sword and my bow. So we know that David HaMelech wrote all of Tehillim with Ruach HaKodesh, and that David HaMelech's experience is the experience of all the Jewish tzaddikim. So he says, I don't trust in my bow and my sword. I don't use those things. So we have now two substantial proofs to show that Yaakov was not talking about a physical sword and a bow. And the fact that he got so angry at his children for using those types of things goes to show how much he was against using physical weapons in order to achieve purposes in your life. And that doesn't just mean violence, physical violence through guns and things like this. It means mamash, violence within yourself, using anger and using demonization and using your influence to try and sway people, using coercion. Yaakov is saying, don't do that. You don't have to do that. You just have to believe completely in Hashem and rely on Hashem, and then you get it. What was the portion of land that Yaakov got? The double portion. It was called Shechem. That was what he was giving to Yosef, Shechem, and that's where Yosef's buried. Now, very interestingly, and I don't want to give too much about later Torahs, but in order to make this make sense, we have to understand what Shechem is. So Rabbi Nachman says later on something incredible, that Shechem is an acronym for Shafal, meaning this lowest level of existence. It means lowly or physical or earthly, meaning this is our physical level of reality. That's the Shin from Shechem. Then you have Kochavim, that's stars. That's the level of reality above us. That's the celestial worlds, okay? And then you have Malachim. So this is going even beyond any sense of physicality whatsoever and moving into the realms of spirituality, where you have spiritual forces who are causing reality down here. So when Yaakov said, I got the double portion from Esav, I got the birthright from him, he was saying, I acquired the ability to conquer everything in reality through tefillah. And what exactly was he referring to when he said, I got Shechem, and where Yosef ended up being buried, and we're going to see why Yosef was buried there and why he got the portion. So it means that Yaakov was telling Yosef, I have figured out how to control all of physical and spiritual reality with my mouth. And Rabbi Nachman says later on in Likutey Moharan that your mission in your life is to be able to do the same thing. That every Jew's mission is to be able to overcome and conquer all of the forces of physical and spiritual reality using just your tefillah. And even though that sounds way beyond anything we can ever imagine, it's not, because Rabbi Nachman's saying it's not. And we're going to see in a moment what is the key to that. But what we're learning simply is that when Yaakov was giving the birthright to Yosef, the birthright he was giving was tefillah. He taught him how to pray. And he was explaining that once you have that, you have Shechem, which is Shafal, Kochavim, and Malachim, that you're going to be able to control all of physical and spiritual reality. And if we need a proof for this, that was Yosef. That is exactly what he did. It's very clear from Chazal and the Midrashim and Kabbalah that Yosef, as the viceroy in Mitzrayim, was in charge of everything. And that wasn't just physically, that was also spiritually. This is the concept of Tzaddik Yesod Olam. It doesn't just mean that he is a great figure that we should try and learn from. It means he is mamash, the foundation of the world. And Nachman says explicitly that nothing happens in this physical world unless it first comes through the tzaddik. That Hashem created reality in a way that if a Jew attains a certain level, he loves to give the whole creation over to you because he trusts you. And he knows what you're going to do is good. And that's gishmak. And that's what Rabbi Nachman wants us all to be able to attain. And this is Bechina Tehilati Echatam Lach. When you praise me, I'm gonna clog my nose for you. Which we learned before yesterday. What's the concept of Hashem clogging his nostrils? So we learned that in a very deep spiritual way, all din, all judgments come down into the world through the left side of Hashem's nose, so to speak. And he was telling David that when you praise me, meaning when you speak to me, when you pray to me from your heart, and you thank me for everything in your life, and you ask me for what you need, and you tell me about what you're struggling with, I am going to plug my nose for you, meaning I'm going to mitigate and sweeten all judgments that you are experiencing and the Jewish people are experiencing. Rabbi Nachman says very clearly the main way to mitigate and to destroy judgments, decrees on your own life, meaning that practically means anything in your life that's not going the way that you would hope it would go, anything that's going negative, anything that's causing you sorrow, anything that's causing you pain, anything that's causing you anguish is called judgments. And then at large, with the Jewish people, for sure, we've been in exile for 2,000 years, and the majority of people don't even know that there's Hashem. And then if you just look at the world with the COVID virus, this is din, this is a judgment. How do we mitigate these judgments? The answer is, Rav Nachman says, the main way is through tefillah, is through prayer. And the reason we're learning is because that's the only thing that can get all the way up to that highest spiritual source in which judgments come down from. And now we're going to move on to the obvious question is, how do you get to that place? How can we get to the point that we can pray in a way that we have Shechem, that we have a double portion, that we have the birthright, that we can manipulate physical and spiritual reality for the benefit of mankind and for our own family and for ourselves? That weapon of tefillah that Mashiach is going to use to conquer the whole world and to bring the whole world to peace and to joy and to serve Hashem is only received through Yosef. So now, just very simply, before we move forward, we have spoken in the past, and it's well documented, that there's two Mashiachs. There's Mashiach ben Yosef, and there's Mashiach ben David. So what is the difference between these two Mashiachs? So one fundamental difference is, which Rabbi Nachman is hinting towards right now, which is that Mashiach ben David, who is going to conquer the whole world and bring us to all the things that we've been looking forward to for thousands of years, he's going to do that only through prayer. But his ability to do that is going to be completely dependent on Mashiach ben Yosef. And Yosef is the tzaddik Yesod Olam. That David's ability to bring redemption to the world is going to be completely contingent on his ability to achieve or to receive from Yosef. And who is Yosef? Hainu Shmirat HaBrit. The Zohar says, what is a tzaddik? Because there's a pasuk that says that all Jews are tzaddikim. So the Zohar says, really? All Jews are tzaddikim? Pretty sure I saw the guy next door. He's not looking so much like a tzaddik to me. So the Zohar says, so it's not true that all Jews are tzaddikim, meaning they're acting within that realm, but it is true that every Jew has a part of them which is called tzaddik. And when they tap into that part, then the Torah and Hashem calls them tzaddik. What is that? So the Zohar says explicitly, when they are Shmirat HaBrit. That if a Jew is able to not waste seed on a simple level, and we're going to discuss more what it means to be Shmirat HaBrit as this Torah goes on, because it's more than that. But if simply in the area of sexual purity, you have attained a certain level that you do not waste seed or do any of the other things that the Torah says is not allowed in the area of sexuality. So the Zohar, which is the deepest Kabbalistic text and the fundamental text of Kabbalah, says Hashem calls you up above a tzaddik if you do not waste seed. That's what it means. That's called the Brit. So now it makes sense. Why? Because Yosef is the archetypal tzaddik. Why is he the archetypal tzaddik? Because Hashem sent Yosef down to Mitzrayim, which was the place of complete sexual immorality. Not unlike the world that we're living in now. That we grow up in a world that, just like Mitzrayim, not only was it normal to do all the things that the Torah says not to do in the area of sexuality, but it's championed. It's great. You should. It's healthy for you, and it brings you happiness and joy and all these other things that they say. So Yosef went down to that place. And how many of us struggle in that place in America, in Western civilization, that you're just barely holding on to that one thing that you heard, that you kind of believe in, or you really believe in, and you really want to try and do it, but everyone's not holding by that at all, and you're trying, but you know. So Yosef, in that place, not only was able to not waste seed, he was a master of this area of sexual purity within Egypt. And that's the tzaddik. That the tzaddik is able to go into the secular world and still hold himself to everything he believes in. And specifically in the area of sexual purity. And that's why Yosef's main test was in the area of sexuality. And this is another important lesson for all of us. Wherever you're struggling the most in your life, Rabbi Nachman says, because you have the greatest power in that place. So if you're saying to yourself, I can't stop wasting seed. I don't understand. I keep hearing Rabbi Nachman speak about it. And all the Breslov rabbis talk about it. And the Gemara talks about it. And the Zohar speaks about it. And I can't stop doing it. I want to stop doing it. I don't know why. And the answer is because you are like Yosef. And you have an ability to be a tzaddik in a way that someone who doesn't struggle in these areas is able to. Yosef was not just a tzaddik because he didn't do it. Yosef was a tzaddik because he wanted to and he didn't do it. He's just like us. You know, Yaakov just didn't want to do it. So he's not called the tzaddik. Yosef wanted to and he didn't do it. That's called the tzaddik. So in the area that you struggle in, that's the area that you have the greatest soul power. And the reason why you feel that that's not part of you at all and you have no shaykh to this area in your life, and this is the greatest cause of your struggle and demonization of yourself, you should know that Rabbi Nachman is saying, because Satan is playing you like a fool, that he has you convinced that you are never going to be able to do this thing, to the extent that he makes you think this is your greatest lacking, and in truth it's your greatest strength. It's just not realized yet. And part of why it's so important to be attached to a tzaddik in Rav Nachman's Torah is because he is going to show you through his teachings and through his advice, and you following it and you attaching yourself to him and learning his advice and doing your best in these areas, that not only is this not your biggest lacking, it is your greatest strength. And that you were meant to teach the whole world about the area that you struggle in. It's a very important point. So Yosef, why is he called a tzaddik? Why is Mashiach ben Yosef the cause of the power of tefillah of Mashiach ben David? Because of the Brit. Kamosha Ketuv. How do we know this? Right? So obviously, there's many places that speak about how important it is to keep the Brit and X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. But how do we know that keeping the Brit actually allows you to pray in a way that it gets answered? We hear Rabbi speak about this all the time. Who says it's true? Why should I believe that? So he brings a proof. Chagor becha ayarech. There is an explicit pasuk in Tehillim that speaks about the concept of a Talmid Chacham according to Rashi. So this is a simple understanding, meaning a person who's growing spiritually and physically, and he's trying his best to be close to Hashem. Chagar habecha ayarech. Gird your sword on your thigh. Okay. So now, there's a question the Zohar has. I don't understand. Again, like Yaakov, a Talmid Chacham, someone who's learning all the time, Torah, and someone who's praying and trying to be close to Hashem. He has a sword on his thigh. Rashi says this is pshat, this is what it's talking about. So how can he have a sword on his thigh? So the Zohar says the sword is not a physical sword. It is his main power, which Rabbi Nachman is saying is tefillah. So what does it mean the sword is on his thigh? So tefillah, meaning the power of his tefillah, is resting on his thigh. And the Zohar says, what's yarech? What is thigh? It's the Brit. And now when you go back and you read all the different Torah portions where people are saying, make an oath on my thigh, and that Yaakov was struck in his thigh, so now a lot of bells are going to be ringing off. That makes a lot of sense. That the thigh was actually his Brit. And now what is this pasuk in Tehillim saying? How are you able to strengthen your weapon, your sword? So it says, Chagor becha, strengthen your sword, al yarech, on your thigh, meaning through your thigh, through your Brit, you're going to strengthen your sword, your tefillah. Through your mastery in the area of the Brit, in sexual purity, you are going to be able to get all of your prayers answered and to be able to conquer the whole world. Like another pasuk. So he's going to bring another pasuk to substantiate it. And this Tehillim is specifically about Mashiach. All the commentators say it. It's speaking about Mashiach. What's the pasuk say? From the fruit of your offspring, I'm going to set your throne to you. So the commentators explain, what does that mean? This means Malchut, that Hashem is promising David that his children are going to be the kings of Israel. And the deeper text explain it's talking about Mashiach, meaning he was telling David, your son, Mashiach, is going to have the throne. Okay, great, we know that. And then Rav Nachman says, Zeh Bechinat Mashiach. This is talking about Mashiach. Bechinat Tefillah, which Rav Nachman is not teaching you. What does it mean to be Mashiach? It means to pray. That is to be Mashiach. To get your prayers answered, that's called Mashiach. Because how Mashiach is going to conquer the whole world is through his tefillah. And how does he do that? What is the next part of that, the next pasuk in Tehillim say? After it says, I'm going to give the fruit of your womb, meaning your children, the crown, meaning Mashiach, to be the king of the Jewish people. Im yishmaru v'necha briti. If your children will guard my Brit. So there you go. So many different places that Rav Nachman is elucidating that you never thought about before. Wow, it's obvious that Hashem is constantly saying, your sword is your prayer. Whether it's through Yaakov, or whether it's through David, or whether it's through Mashiach, or whether it's in Tehillim, or whatever it is. And your ability to access that prayer and to get answered is when you guard your Brit. Hayina al Yedei Yosef. Meaning, only through Mashiach ben David can you get to only through Mashiach ben Yosef can you get to Mashiach ben David. Meaning, practically, individually, only through Shmirat Brit can I get to Tefillah. So if you're wondering, if I'm praying like Rabbi Nachman tells me to do all the time, and I'm not getting my prayers answered, what's the reason? The answer is Shmirat Brit. And if you think you're Shmirat Brit, and you're still not getting your prayers answered, it's because you haven't learned enough about what Rabbi Nachman says is Shmirat Brit. Because Rabbi Nachman is about to say that when a person is truly Shmirat Brit, he gets every single prayer answered. Every single one gets answered. To the point that it actually becomes a danger, and we're going to talk about how you have to put safeguards on yourself so that you don't pray for the wrong thing, because it's going to happen. The Yosef sheshamar et the Brit, and Yosef that he guarded the Brit, natal et the bachura. He is the one who took the birthright. What's that birthright? Shehu bechinat avodat tefillah. What is the simple understanding of the birthright that was supposed to go to the firstborn but ended up being taken away and going to Leviim? The answer is service in the Beit HaMikdash. And it's very clear that the service, the avoda of the Beit HaMikdash was tefillah. Like Hashem said himself, this is the house of prayer. Meaning they were going to become masters of prayer. That was supposed to be all the firstborn. And because of the sin of the golden calf, they lost that. And it went over to the Leviim. Now, before that happened, it happened on a micro level within the children of Yaakov, because whatever happened to them happened to the Jewish people at large. Who was supposed to get it? It was Reuven. Reuven was the firstborn. But he lost it. How did Reuven lose it? We'll see in a second. Bechina pi shenayim. What's the concept of prayer? It's a double portion. Ki etafila hu pi shnayim. Because prayer itself is twofold. The Gemara says in Brachot, what is prayer? Sheyesh behem shivkol shemakom u'she'elat zarachav. That you should first thank Hashem for everything in your life, and then you should ask for what you need. So you see that there's two main aspects to prayer. There is gratitude, and there is request. There is tefillah, and there's bakasha. There is the sword and the bow. So your double-edged sword that you are going to slay negativity in your life with, and to transform all darkness to light, and to bring blessing to your life, and to get all your prayers answered, that is through the sword of prayer. But that sword has two edges. That's called to thank for what you have in your life, both the good and the bad, and to ask Hashem for what you need. That's the sword. Before you go to sleep, if anybody here does Shema on your bed, so you'll know there, especially if you're Sephardic or you're Hasidic, that there's a pasuk that you're supposed to say 3 times. And in that pasuk, it says, that this double-edged sword is in his hand, meaning Shlomo Melech had 60 servants who stood around him, soldiers, when he slept. And they all had a double-edged sword in their hand. So what does it mean simply? It means simply that they had a double-edged sword, but what does it mean on a deeper level? It means that they all had the quality of prayer, and therefore they were able to protect the king. And because of that, Shlomo was protected. So that's the double-edged sword that we're all supposed to have. That's the birthright. Bechinat shtei piyot, 2 sides, bechinot pi shnayim, meaning a double portion. That's the double portion. And now we can understand, why did Reuven lose it to Yosef? Okay, so Reuven lost it. Why did Reuven lose it? He made an error, so what? Okay, we all make mistakes. So why should he lose the whole birthright? Because that is supposed to go to the firstborn. And the answer is, where did he make an error? He moved the bed. So what happened was, his father Yaakov, his main wife was Rachel. This was Joseph's mother, Benjamin's mother. Once she passed away, all of Leah's children thought that Yaakov, seeing as that was his other wife, would put the bed in her tent. And he didn't. he put it in Rachel's maidservant, Bilhah. And Reuven, as the oldest and able to understand what was going on, he was very confused and very angry. And he didn't understand how could it be that my mother has suffered this whole time feeling like you loved Rachel more, and now she passes away and you're going to put your bed in the maidservants? How are you going to do that? So he took the bed and put it into his mother's. And according to Chassidut, according to Chazal, according to the Gemara, according to all of the sages, this was a pagam of the Brit, because he moved the bed. And the bed is where there is sexual intimacy. So therefore, on a very deep level, that was a pagam of the Brit. And now Rabbi Nachman is saying, now you can understand why, even though that was a seemingly innocent error, which maybe any son would do if that was in the same situation, because it was a blemish of the Brit, he lost the birthright. Oh, that's amazing. That makes sense now. But now the question is, but why does it go to Yosef? There's so many other tzaddikim that he had. The answer is, because Yosef was shmirat habrit. Because it was the opposite for Yosef. Yosef, within the most secular world, he managed to be shmirat habrit. And therefore, only he can get the birthright. Because the ability to get the birthright, meaning to feel it that gets answered every time, which Yaakov took from Esav, the only way you're able to access that is through shmirat habrit, which is the concept of Yosef. Any questions about the second section?
Yosef is Yasod, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So to the degree that a person's tefillah gets answered or doesn't get answered, you're basically, well, not you, but Rav Nachman saying that to that degree is blemished?
If a person's tefillah is not getting answered, then he has a blemish of the Brit. And that doesn't, and again, that doesn't just mean that you're wasting seed. Maybe you're not wasting seed at all. And maybe you have worked on this for many years and you have gotten to a point that you feel like you have a very high level of sexual purity. However, Rav Nachman is going to explain later on that the Brit is not just not wasting seed. It has also to do with keeping all the halachot. It has also to do with learning Torah. It has to do with a lot of things. And therefore, to keep the Brit is really to keep everything. And that's why there is a tzaddik emet, because it's almost impossible to get to that point. And that's why Rabbi Nachman teaches, and Rav Natan actually says this, you know, anyone who's listening to this might feel completely overwhelmed. I can't stop wasting seed. How am I ever getting to the point that even if I do stop, I'm gonna be able to do all of these things, or whatever we're speaking about now? And Rav Natan says, in truth, very few people ever get to the level of perfected prayer. Okay? Very few people ever get to this point that they have mastered their Brit to the extent that they get all their prayers answered. Only the tzaddik emet, or the true tzaddikim, have ever gotten to this point. Okay? However, Rav Natan says, and this is the key for all of us, that through two means, you're able to still get your prayers answered, even when you're not holding at that point. Not yet, or maybe not even ever. And what are those two ways? So he brings down in Torah Natan. The first thing is that you are attached to a true tzaddik. That by being attached to a person who has attained that level, or to the tzaddik who has attained that level, and you are learning his Torah and trying to fulfill his eitzot, his advice, so then, so to speak, you get his VIP card. That you are able to get your prayers answered even when you're not yet holding at that level, or maybe you're never holding at that level. But you're still able to with that. And then Rav Natan adds an important second part. But that's only when you yourself are trying your very hardest in the area of tefillah. That you are toiling every day to do your hibodedut, to pray as hard as you can, to pray as much as you can. if you're doing that and you are attached to a true tzaddik, then Rav Natan says you too will get to the point that you get your prayers answered. So that was a very good question, and that was a very important last point for everybody who's listening, because this can sound very overwhelming, and this could sound like something that's just not realistic. And the answer is, Rav Natan saying, it's not for everybody to get to this point. Maybe it is realistic for all of us not to waste seed. We can do that, okay? And even that is very hard. But to be able to actually get to the point to become a master of the Brit like Yosef Atzadik, so there's very few people who have ever done that. And therefore, Rav Natan saying, your main thing then is just to make sure that you're attached to the person who has. And when you do that, meaning the Rav, meaning the Tzaddik, when you're attached to that Tzaddik through his Eitzah, through the people who are giving you his wisdom, and you're trying to live according to it, then you have a chance to do it as well for yourself. And on top of that, you are putting in the effort every day in your Hippo to talk to Hashem, to pray as hard as you can.
Kalmus, let me ask you a question, right?
Sure.
Maybe a little personal. You don't have to answer. For the viewers, I want people to understand it.
Benny, I'm losing you a little bit. I can't hear you so much.
Yeah, now?
A little louder. Sorry. I know it's private, but I can't hear anything.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. How does a person know, like, for example, Rav Nassim had this whole encounter where he was supposed to be the head of his city? And that was the truth. Yeah, we know the truth of truths that Rav Nachman told him, you should take it, but you should, instead of taking it, you should be with me. So how do you know, let's say Rav Nassim davened for that, and he had Rav Nachman, he had somebody who was like guiding him and telling him, this is what you gotta do, this is how you do it, right? We don't necessarily have that leader figure. There's so many people that we're learning Breslov Hasidus from.
Right.
Obviously, the Rabbi is, the Rabbi and everyone else is just the offshoot of him, correct?
Right.
Therefore, whenever a person's davening and he's praying, Hashem, I need this, I need that, thinking, obviously he's doing the three parts, the praising, the thinking, the asking, and he's asking Hashem, and help me out, and do this, and do that, whatever, and he's getting all those things answered. How does that person know that this is what Hashem wants, as this is not what Hashem wants? Like the story of Rav Nassim and Rav Nachman.
Great. Very good question. So the answer is that's the next section. That's actually the next section. Like we said before, that we're going to go from when you obtain this level of the Brit, and you do get your prayers answered, then there's a danger to that, because who says you're praying for the right thing? And then there's a quality called mishpat, which we're going to learn how to attain this quality of mishpat. And through mishpat, you're able to make sure that you're asking for the right things. So very good question as well. Okay, but
things that are like I'm sure Rav Nassim, when he was asking, he wasn't asking things for like his son.
So we need to understand something. Sorry, I lost you a little bit, but I think I understand what you're trying to say. We have to understand that when we get anecdotes about the relationship of Rav Nachman or Rav Natan, we need to look at those anecdotes very clearly, meaning those stories that we hear about them and how Rav Natan responded to certain things and how he acted in certain ways. We know that famous story about how he was supposed to be a Rav, and then he came to Rabbi Nachman, he said, should I take that? And he said, you should. And then Rav Natan said, is that the truth of truths? And then Rav Nachman said, definitely not, you shouldn't take that job. So Rav Nachman never told anybody to do anything. That even though we have the concept of the tzaddik, and we're saying that your ability to reach your spiritual and physical potential is by following his eitzah, that's the eitzah within his Torah. But Rabbi Nachman himself never explicitly told anyone to do anything. He only empowered you to make a good choice for yourself. So one second. No, he was saying...
I read it's in Sechot Haran that Rav Nachman specifically said, I don't tell people what to do, because when a big tzaddik tells somebody to do something and they don't listen to him, they get punished in judgments. So he said, I say, if it was me, I would do this. If it's, maybe this is a good idea, what do you think about that? That's what usually Rav Nachman is explicitly brought down in
yes.
Rav Nachman's.
Thank you, Abraham.
Sorry for
Therefore, when no, that was great. I appreciate that. So therefore, when you hear certain stories, you have to get the whole picture. That's why it's so important. You speak to someone who knows really what that relationship was like and what was going on there, because you can hear certain stories and come out thinking like, oh, this is the whole thing, and it's not the whole thing. The only reason Rav Natan prayed that he should be connected to a true tzaddik is not because he had one doubt that Rav Nachman was not a true tzaddik. He didn't have a doubt at all. It's just because Rav Nachman told him to do it. He knew that was for him. And not only that, Rav Natan completely nullified himself to everything he learned from Rabbi Nachman. That doesn't mean that Rabbi Nachman said, do this and do that, and he did it. He didn't do that. That was not their relationship. Rabbi Nachman believed in empowering, that every Jew is capable of making the right decision on their own, giving the right wisdom and giving the right encouragement and giving the truth. And
every Jew can be just like him, correct? So
Rabbi Nachman didn't exactly say that every Jew can be just like him. He said that every Jew can be a tzaddik. But there are tzaddikim and there are true tzaddikim. And there's very few true tzaddikim who ever lived.
What's the difference of a true?
I have something to say.
Yes.
So Rambam says that what comes from the Brit is brain fluid. Am I correct? It's like a
yes.
So I've learned or I've heard there's a way of bringing from your Brit all the way up to your spinal cord what is in there up into your brain. Can you shed some light on that if it's true?
I don't know, but I would stay away from such a practice.
The meditative practice that the Kabbalists would do, I think.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know about this. I would also stay away from this practice, and okay. I would suggest that you simply work on talking to Hashem every day for an hour, and learning what Rabbi Nachman says is the best thing for you to do in order to achieve all these things, and to be simple. Many Balei Tshuva, especially like us, that we love Kabbalah and we're so connected to deep spiritual things, and there's really big reasons for that and very beautiful reasons for that. However, that can also become a Yetzer Hara clothed in a mitzvah as well. And therefore, just be simple. And Rabbi Nachman gives you all that you need to be able to achieve everything you want in your life. And I didn't see anywhere that he tells you to take the fluids from your semen and to put it up your spine into your brain. So, but if I do see that, I will completely stand corrected, and I will humble myself before everybody, because I don't know everything, and not even close. I know very little, but
look into it if I'm wrong, if I'm right.
I missed that one in Sichot Haran. So, but maybe I missed it. You know, maybe Abraham knows. He knows a lot. Of that
can
stuff.
You hear me? By the way, Benny said, and just to not correction, it says Rav Nachman explicitly said, he says, "Ani yachol la'asot lechem kamoni mamish." I can make you like me. I don't know, how would you translate the word mamish? But the thing is, like you said, really, meaning he didn't mean that we can be like Rab Nachman. It means you can be fulfilling your full potential just like I did. Kamoni mamash. What did Rab Nachman said? I completely fulfilled everything that I could have done, and you can reach the levels.
Listen, Benny, one thing.
Fulfilling
your
potential.
Keep going.
And then Rab Natan also once said, he says, like, I'm not his student, yeah? Rav Natan says, I'm not holding, I'm ready for Mashiach. Like, I'm not holding back Mashiach. I'm not doing any sins. I'm going to the max. Like, for me, in my case, I'm not going to have any judgments, any taina. Why was Mashiach holding back because of you? He says, I got my Mashiach, meaning I'm fulfilling my potential to the max. So this is what the Rabbeinu meant. So even people going to say, and I heard it from very big Besser Rabban, because it's exactly like what Benny said, but the meaning was exactly what you said. So
the person who fulfills his potential, he's already unlocked and tapped into this consciousness called Mochin de Galu, right? Just like any tzaddik or tzaddik emet or whatever it is.
But so Hashem and Netanya speaks about this, and it's very clear in Zohar and Kabbalah. There is a concept of souls, and Rav Nachman's going to speak about this later, that have higher level of influence, okay? And those souls that are given higher levels of influence, the reason is because their souls are more root souls, okay? And therefore, as a result of that, they're able to achieve more, not because they deserve it, but because that's what's going to allow the people who are listening to him to grow. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, when he went up to receive the Torah, he said, I'm not giving this for you, I'm giving it for the Jewish people. That's why I made you the all-encompassing soul, so that you can then go get to the highest level and give it to everyone else. So the answer is, when you max out your potential, that's called being a tzaddik, like Rabbi Nachman, like Abraham is saying, that it's saying I can make you like me. He said, anybody who attaches themselves to me is going to be, I can make you all tzaddikim, and it's true. But Rabbi Nachman said, and Rav Kramer said this in Uman, that he said, notice that Rav Nachman told Rav Natan, make many students, but he didn't say make any rebbeim. He didn't tell him.
He told him, I'm going to be the Rabbi, and they're going to be students and make students. It's brought down in a few places.
So I heard from Rav Kramer this, and he's a pretty good source. So he said that he explicitly he said that he should make many students,
right.
And also there were things that Rabbi Nachman would allow people to do with him that he wouldn't allow to do with Rav Natan. And that was nothing against Rav Natan. Rav Natan achieved his purpose in life. He was one of the greatest Jews who ever lived, and Mamash is giving us all life. But Rav Nachman said, you can learn my Torah from Rav Natan, but you can't do vidui in front of him to Hashem. So, and that wasn't a knock against Rav Natan. That was not him. That was not his chelik in this world. That was not his portion in this world. He was the moon, and Rav Nachman was the sun, and it's just a different role. Part of, and this is a very important thing for anyone who's listening, part of growing to your fullest potential is being humble. Being humble means that I'm going to do the best that I can possibly do, and whatever that looks like, that's good for me. And not to think that I have to be like someone else, because you don't have to be like anybody else. In fact, it's a very big Yetzer Hara to feel like you have to be like anybody else. It's you and Hashem put everything in this world for you to accomplish your mission in your life. And your mission as a tzaddik could be to make kosher food for people, or to do kiruv, or to teach, or to do anything. And the Tanya explains that how foolish we are, that we don't realize that if you took all the souls of the Jewish people, you would see that you are like part of the hand, and someone's part of the foot, someone's part of the head. And how foolish the hand would be to say, well, I want to be like the head. Yeah, but then you're not going to be the hand, and you need a hand. And you need a hand just as much as you need a head. And if the head says, I want to be like the feet, yeah, but that's not even good for the body, because with a head and without feet, you can't walk. So the concept of a body, the concept of the Klal Yisrael being one soul is not a nicety. It's not to make people feel good. It's because mamash, every single Jewish soul from the beginning until the end of time is in a different place within the spiritual body that's called Yisrael. That's why some people like learning Torah all day and some people can't. That's why some people go to work and some people don't. That's why some people want to encourage and empower others through their speech, and some people are quiet, because we are not all the same, and that's great. That's beautiful. And part of being able to grow is to learn who you are. And the only way to learn who you are is through Hippodaду. There's no way to accurately figure out who you truly are except through heartfelt prayer every single day and talking to Hashem about it and asking for help to figuring out who that is. And in the meantime, and this is a piece of advice for the person who asked, that you should have peace with wherever you are and know that that's wherever Hashem wants you to be. Because if not, then you wouldn't be there. So that's the answer. Any other questions?
So people spoke about Benny, about Mochin the Gadlut and Katnus. People should know Rabbi Nachman had Mochin the Katnus. I know one time when he was on a boat going to Israel or back, It was a big storm, and the guy his student that was with him said, Rabbi, please, you know, you're tzaddik, pray, say some shemas, do some Kabbalah stuff. He says, I am not doing and I can't do anything. Right now, I'm I cannot do a thing, right? And from a huge tzaddik, it was like a big surprise to the student. So and he still was perfect, and he still was fulfilling his potential, was the tzaddik emes. Even though he had mochin the kasnut, it's probably not the only time that he had. That's just the one that I remember. So mochin the kasnut and accepting that it's also, you know, it's also an avoida.
Nachman says that mochin the kasnut is part of being a Jew. It's you have to cycle through these two things because Rav Nachman and Rav Natan actually explain. Rav Natan says explicitly that the whole purpose of going to mochin the gadlut, meaning going to expanded consciousness, is to go back down to limited consciousness and lift it up. So you have to keep going back and forth. So it is definitely not.
There's a lot of things. Yeah. It's brought down with the shvirat kelim to make new kelim. So
Yeah,
many ways it's true.
Anyway, I think the simple thing that he's trying to get away with or come away with is how do I know who I am? How do I know what Hashem wants from me? You know, and I want to invest myself completely in whatever that is, but I don't want to shoot beyond whatever Hashem wants from me, and I don't want to shoot less than that. And I think we can all relate to that. And the answer is that's why it's very, very important that you talk to Hashem every single day, and you have quiet and peace of mind, and also that you have yourself in the meantime attached to a real tzaddik and to follow his eitzah that he gives you and to try and fulfill his practices and the Torah, and through that ask Hashem that he should give you clarity in this area. But even when you're trying to figure it out, you should still have peace. That should not take away your joy, because then it becomes the Yetzer Hara clothed in a mitzvah. And know in the end that nothing happens unless Hashem wants it to happen. And that's very, very important. Any other questions? Practical
Rabbi,
questions? Yes.
You said 2 ways to have your prayers answered. One, to attach to a tzaddik, and the second one is the correcting 100% of the Brit. Is that what it is, or is there something else?
No. So the way to get your prayers answered is through guarding the Brit. But Rav Natan is saying, but all of us who are listening, we're not masters of the Brit, and maybe we want to be, and maybe we hope to be one day. But what does that mean? Like, until that point, I'm not going to get any prayers answered? So Rav Natan says, no, there is a way in the meantime also to get your prayers answered, even without actually having rectified this area. And the answer is twofold. He says, if you are attached to a tzaddik who is holding this place, a true tzaddik, and you're learning from him, and you're getting guidance from him, and you're trying to live according to his advice, and you are also on your own part doing your best to toil every day within prayer, within tefillah, within hibodedut. And if you do those two things, you will still get your prayers answered as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, wanted to ask, I mean, I know it both is big on Shavuos and whatever, but what is like the avoda that we have for Shavuos? I mean, is it to do the tikkun? Is it, I mean, besides doing it both at night, which is obvious, if the ones who stay awake.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to speak about Shavuot before I finish, so that's a good way to end the class.
Oh. And Shavuot in 3, 2, 1, action.
Yes, okay, thank you. So thank you, Abraham. I'll pay you later. So answer is like this. And first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody in these classes. This is the 4th week we've been doing it. That means we've been doing it for up to a month almost, and we're not going to have any more men's classes until Shavuot. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. And I really appreciate not just that you're coming to the classes, but that you're really trying, that you're all trying so hard to really maximize your potential in your life, and to try and be authentic and genuine, and to try to really come close to Hashem, no matter what you're struggling in, and no matter how you're feeling. And that is so precious to Hashem, more precious than you can ever imagine, even more precious than the results. So that's first off. So I can't wait to after Shavuot come back together with you and to continue this very, very important Torah, Likutey Moharan, the second Torah, and to get more understanding and clarity in this. With that being said, Shavuot is coming up. This is Matan Torah, and it's according to Kabbalah, it's not just that we received the Torah thousands of years ago on this day, and therefore we're commemorating it, but that in fact, the whole reality of Matan Torah takes place again every Shavuot. That, so to speak, if you are able to, you have the ability to makabel the Torah again, like the Jewish people did thousands of years ago, yourself, to receive the whole Torah anew. And therefore, it's a very powerful day. And it's one of the 3 days, actually, that Rabbi Nachman insisted on his students coming to him during the year. The other one that most people know, obviously, is Rosh Hashanah. But Shavuot was one of those 3 days. And one of the reasons is because it's such a powerful, powerful day. So what are the main things? Obviously, with the COVID virus, it becomes a little bit more difficult. However, Rabbi Nachman has a very famous Torah in Likutey Moharan about Shavuot, about Matan Torah, and the concept of the mikveh. And it's one of the few places in Likutey Moharan he actually speaks about the mikveh, which is surprising because of how much Breslovers go to the mikveh and how important it is to do so. However, this is one of the main sources where Rabbi Nachman holds about the mikveh, and it's specifically about Shavuot and how you're learning that night and then eventually going to the mikveh after, before you pray Shachrit in the morning, or Musaf. So then through this, you actually achieve the 50th gate of Chokhmah. And we know that according to the Gemara and according to Kabbalah, the 50th gate is the highest gate of spiritual light. And it's only accessible on Shavuot. And it's only accessible after you have learned all night. And it's only accessible if you follow that up by going to the mikveh. And then you achieve the 50th gate. So obviously, it is very, very important on Shavuot to go to a mikveh. Now, obviously, we have an issue that a lot of us can't get to a mikveh because of the virus. And therefore, everyone should be davening very much in your hibodedut that somehow Hashem should perform a miracle that you can get to a mikveh. In a way that's obviously not a chilul Hashem, or that's going to be a health risk, but that hopefully Bezrat Hashem you should be able to. And again, the key to that experience on Shavuot is that you learn all night, okay? Now this is clear from Chazal, that this is the avoda, to learn all night. So, but beyond that, what are you learning all night? So Breslov Hasidim, like the Sephardim, based on the custom of the Arizal, they learn the Tikkun. They learn the Tikkun that the Arizal put together, that he innovated, which goes through a little bit of every aspect of Tanakh and Zohars. And you're able to finish the whole thing in one night. And the Arizal spoke very, very highly of this. And all the Hasidic masters speak very highly of this. And all of the Sephardic rabbis speak very highly of this, and all the Mekubalim speak very highly of this, and that there is a tikkun that is achieved through doing this that you can't do through anything else. And therefore, Breslover Hasidim, including Rabbi Nachman himself, would do that tikkun every Shavuot and go through the whole thing. However, in addition to that, which you may not find in other places, is there was just as much an emphasis on joy, like we spoke about in the beginning of the class. Meaning, not only are you learning like that, but you're also dancing and singing. So part of the ability to get to the mikveh and get to the 50th gate, beside the learning all night and doing that tikkun, is actually to be besimcha, to be very happy. And obviously, how do you express happiness? Through singing, through dancing. And therefore, it was very common for Breslov Hasidim, even Rav Natan and his friends at the time, and over the course of the couple hundred of years since Rabbi Nachman and Rav Natan lived, that they, so to speak, some people are doing the tikkun while other Jews are dancing, and then they stop dancing and they do the tikkun, and the other people are dancing, and then when they finish, everybody's dancing and singing together. So therefore, these are the three main things on Shavuot. First is that you stay up all night and you learn, and that you say the tikkun. Second is that you are besimcha, that you are happy. Why? Because we know that on Matan Torah, they had achieved the highest level of happiness. Rabbi Nachman explains elsewhere that the crowns that they received on Shavuot, the first time they received the Torah, when they said Naaseh v'Nishma, and it says in the Midrash, they all received 2 crowns. What were the crowns they received? He said it was called Simcha. that for the first time in history, they achieved real happiness. So therefore, Rav Nachman and his Hasidim, they don't just replicate the learning of the Torah and receiving it all over again. They are replicating the whole experience, because it's not just a replication. It is, and you're able to tap into, so to speak, a spiritual portal where you are at Matan Torah again, and you're receiving it completely new again. You do that by saying the Tikkun. That's like you got the whole Torah, and then on top of that, you're besimcha like they were, and then you go to the mikveh like they did, and those are the main avodas. And through this, you're able to achieve things the rest of the year that you can't do on any other day, because you have achieved the 50th gate of Chokhmah, wisdom, of God consciousness. Okay? Everybody have an amazing, amazing, happy, meaningful, and connected Shavuot. Don't waste time on Shavuot. Even though Rav Nachman says it's very important to be happy, he doesn't mean not learning or not praying. He means within the actual spiritual connections that you're trying to make at the time. It's a very serious time in terms of you should be learning all night and doing your best to be focusing on spiritual matters and not talking about secular things at all that night. But while you're doing that, you need to make sure that you're mamish happy, that you're really, really happy. So I wish you guys all a happy, elevated, connected, peaceful, joyful, amazing, amazing Chag Shavuot. And that we should mamish receive the Torah of Mashiach and go back to the land of Israel and go home and to end this long, painful, traumatic exile and to experience all the things that we've all been yearning for our whole life. I love you guys so much. I can't wait to see you guys on Sunday night after Shavuot and to have the men's women's class then, and to keep going and to keep growing closer and closer and closer to Hashem until Mashiach. Okay? Everybody have a great night and a great Shavuot.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you.